Retro MX Reviews. My name is Swart, and I've been a motocross racer for more than 30 years. In the past few years, I've been getting into racing the old bikes a little bit more, and as I've done it, I've found that there aren't a lot of good resources. I see a lot of articles, I see a lot of GoPro, but I don't really see anything giving me kind of a seat of the pants, what does it feel like to ride an old bike. So I decided to break out the video camera and try to do some reviews on these older bikes, almost like, you know, a new bike review. I don't pretend to be the expert on these bikes. Some I know more about than others, but I'm going to give it my best shot and kind of compare it to modern. I thought this would be a good way to help people that are getting back into vintage, and so we can kind of understand what they're getting into with different bikes, because the bikes did change a lot from year to year. Now for me, my comfort zone is 80s and 90s bikes, but I'm really hoping to get some rides on some 70s bikes too. I'll ride anything, because I just love riding dirt bikes. So from that, we're going to start with our first bike here. This is the 1993 Suzuki RM125. We're going to give it a little walk around, and if you're seeing stuff as we're walking around, maybe you used to work on one of these, used to race one of these, know some kind of magic secret sauce you can put in to make it go better, please leave it in the comments. It'd be really cool if we could just kind of have some good, you know, just share some knowledge, do some bench race and whatever. It's all dirt bikes, right? And here we go with our walk around. This is the 1993 Suzuki RM125. This was a new platform this year. The 93 to 95s were very, very similar. 93 had an open chamber fork. This one's actually been upgraded to the twin chamber with stiffer 250 fork springs. In the 94, they went to the Kaheen carb instead of the Mikuni, which is something that I might actually try, but just haven't gotten around to yet. And then the shock on this has also been upgraded. This is the first year of their wraparound bodywork, which actually didn't live for very long, but was really cool. And if you look at it, you know, a lot of people thought it was wide. Personally, I kind of like wide bikes. I ride a YZ modern bike, and I think the extra width isn't a bad thing, so it kind of helps me grip a little more. The engine here got a heavy redo in '89, and it really shared a lot of parts from '89 on up. The '89 was the first year of the case read, and they figured out some things with their exhaust valves about how to make those better. They tried a few different experiments in the late 80s, and none of them worked very well. So with that, it's just kind of a look at it. And now let's go out, and my goal is to spin some laps, and then we'll even try to compare the times against the times on my modern bike. Here we go. off the track, still out of breath, hadn't even any water. Go through a few things on the bike. Now, truth be told, I've actually had this bike for a few months, so I've got a few races on it and have tracked down a few issues. I'm happy to say that those are actually fixed now. But the bike, it does really well. Start off feel and ergonomics, you feel like you sit down in it, and it really takes some time to get used to that because the transition from sitting to standing is like huge. Maybe something that a tall seat would help, but the bike's already pretty tall, so that might screw with the turning. So ergo's a little weird like that. You kind of sit down in it. Power is surprisingly good. This bike's been through a lot of problems since I've had it, and it's all seems to be ironed out now. It feels, you know, comparing to a modern 125, it just feels like very similar, but not quite as much anywhere. So, you know, decent bottom end, mid-range, well, no bottom end, but for 125, decent. And then you kind of shift into the mid-range, and that's nice, it's controllable. It's got good over rev, not a lot of pull up there, but it'll rev out if you need it. The suspension is, the track today is super choppy. This is the end of a long weekend, and it doesn't feel great, but at the same time, my modern bike doesn't feel great either. So it's that choppy out there. What's cool about the 125 and the good handling is you can kind of use that to get around some of this stuff pretty easy. You just want to avoid it. The shock on this bike is actually really good, and I don't know if it's because the bike just doesn't have that much power, or they just built a good shock that day, but it's the stock shock with a 250 spring on it, and it actually does really well. And I've noticed this at other tracks too. It surprises me. So it kind of encourages you to just hang over the back and just use that shock and hammer it. Other than that, you know, brakes are okay. They're not super awesome brand new bike, but it's nothing that I notice when I ride it. It's nothing that bothers me. Overall, it's a really raceable bike for, you know, here it's the Revolution 2 class, so it's right in the middle of the age range for that. And I do, usually when I time this against my modern bike, it's 5 to 6 seconds off, depending on the different track. It'd be interesting to see today, because I really didn't feel like I was going very quick on the modern bike either. So we'll update you with some lap times after I get home and can do some editing. Anyway, I think that's it for the 93 RM. A good little bike, really fun to ride, nice power, and you know, a good candidate for Revolution 2 class racing is what we call it out here. Anyway, if you got comments, questions, ideas, anything like that, please drop them down below, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch the video. See you at the track.